Hello and welcome back to the JamesFR YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and today it is time to round off this mini-series which I have done looking at each and every one of Europe's top 5 leagues and ranked each of the clubs in those leagues by virtue of their longest serving manager, from the shortest serving to the longest serving. And today, for the final league, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, it is the turn of the Bundesliga to be featured. At the end of this video, I'll show you the combined table, so obviously when each of the leagues are combined into one, so the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga and Ligue 1, who comes out on top and who comes out in last place, and all the other positions in between. But I won't do any commentary throughout showing those pictures because I've already done in-depth commentaries on each of them. And of course, if you want to check those previous videos out, there is a playlist where I've collated every single video I've done ranking things, and that playlist link will be in the description down below for you to check out. But without any further ado, here is every single club from the 2021-22 Bundesliga season ranked by virtue of their longest serving managers. 18th, RB Leipzig with Alexander Zorniger. It is quite understandable that RB Leipzig come in last across all Bundesliga clubs with this criteria applied, considering it has only existed in its current form since 2009, when Red Bull acquired the playing rights of SSV Markenstedt and formed its own club, voiding the history of Markenstedt in the process. With that in mind, Alexander Zorniger's 2.5-year reign as manager between July 2012 and February 2015 is still longer than anyone else has managed in the club's 12-year lifespan, and he took Leipzig from the Regionalliga Nordost to the Zweite Bundesliga in just 2 seasons, although after just 4 wins from 16 games, he was dismissed and replaced by Achim Bayersola. Zorniger was clearly a victim of Red Bull's lofty ambitions, as they were aiming to be in the Bundesliga in rapid-fire time, yet they had to spend an extra season in the Zweite Bundesliga before making that next step. And remarkably, they've only finished outside of the top 5 in any league they have been in once, when they came in 6th in the Bundesliga in 2017-18. 17th, FC Köln with Peter Stöger. Peter Stöger is the most recent man to have coached the club in question, meaning that no active Bundesliga manager holds the record for the longest serving managerial stint at their respective club. A defence-minded manager who works well at clubs on lower budgets, Stöger worked his magic upon being appointed as Köln manager in 2013, as he guided the club to promotion from the second tier in his very first season, and in 2016-17, powered by the goals of Anthony Modeste, they ended up in 5th and qualified for the Europa League. However, things began to fall apart alarmingly in 2017-18, as the Billy Goats collected just 3 points from their first 14 games on the way to relegation, and Stöger was let go after those 14 games, promptly joining the sinking ship of Borussia Dortmund and steadying it, but no one has spent longer at Köln as a manager than he has. 16th, FC Augsburg with Armin Veh. Augsburg are a club who have become mainstays in the Bundesliga in recent years, although their first ever campaign in Germany's top flight was only the 2011-12 season, as they had spent most of their existence in Germany's regional leagues. They were in the Oberliga Bayern, the regional league of Bavaria, in 1990 when Armin Veh, then aged just 29, became the coach, although he wasn't able to guide them into the second tier once during his 5 years there. The closest he came was in 1994, when Augsburg won the regional league but finished last in the promotion playoff group between the 4 best performing sides from the 3 regional leagues that made it the 3rd tier at the time, winning just once from their 6 games. 15th, TSG 1899 Hoffenheim with Hansi Flick. Unfortunately, I can only find managers for Hoffenheim post-1979, as before then they were mostly slumming it out in the amateur 8th tier of German football, so if there is a manager who lasted longer than 5.5 years prior to 1979, it is beyond my, and also seemingly the internet's as well, knowledge. That means that soon-to-be Germany manager Hansi Flick, who may well have taken over the national team by the time this video comes out, and of course won the Champions League with Bayern Munich in 2020, is Hoffenheim's longest-serving manager out of all of those who have been officially recognised since 1979. The village-based team appointed Flick in 2000, the very year the controversial owner Dietmar Hopp became the majority shareholder of them, when they were in the 4th tier, and although they won promotion straight away, they weren't able to go up to the Zweite Bundesliga in 4.5 seasons, and in November 2005, with results not improving, Flick was relieved of his duties. Needless to say, he's done pretty well for himself since then. 14th, Greuther Fürth with Günter Gerling. Günter Gerling's time at Greuther Fürth was undoubtedly a turbulent one, as he joined a club in financial trouble in 1989 who was stuck in the 4th tier of German football. However, Gerling was able to lead the club up into the 3rd tier, where they remained until his departure in 1995, but the year after that they merged with TSV Westerbergskreuz, who were in the same division as Fürth at the time, and the move brought with it financial stability and prosperity, just as they had hoped. The club are 3-time German champions, but all of those titles predate the Nazi regime, and they've only spent one full season in the Bundesliga up to this point, which was the 2012-13 season in which they were relegated, but the 2021-22 campaign will be their second after they won promotion in second place in the Zweite Bundesliga last season. 13th, Eintracht Frankfurt with Paul Oswald. Eintracht Frankfurt have become regular competitors in European football over the last few seasons, although after a run of 1 win in 5 games at the end of the last season, they bottled the chance to qualify for the 2021-22 Champions League and instead have to settle for the Europa League. Should they have made it, it wouldn't have actually been their first season in Europe's premier club competition, as their only one to date came back in 1960, when they reached the final but lost 7-3 in one of the greatest finals of all time to the all-conquering Real Madrid. That came under the guidance of Paul Oswald, who joined the club in 1958 and won the German Championship, the only one in Frankfurt's history, in 1959. He kept them a competitive force in German football until 1964, when after finishing in third in the first ever Bundesliga season, he left the club after suffering 2 separate heart attacks. 12. Bayern Munich with Ottmar Hitzfeld. It is now time for FC Hollywood themselves to feature as the most successful club in German football history, and by some distance too, come in at 12th place, with perhaps appropriately their most successful manager of all time. Ottmar Hitzfeld, who had already won the Champions League once whilst in charge of Borussia Dortmund, rather betrayed the Schwarzgelben by joining their Der Klassiker rivals in 1998, just a year after leaving Dortmund, and over the course of the next 6 years he would win 11 trophies with the Bavarian Giants. His most noteworthy campaign was the 2000-2001 season, as Bayern stole the title from under Schalke's nose with the final kick of the season, and then, presumably with the momentum that they had from that game, went on to win their first Champions League since 1976 on penalties against Valencia. Joint 10th, VfL Bochum with Heinz Höher. Bochum are one of the oldest sporting organisations in the world, as they were founded in 1848 as a gymnastics club, but it would only be in 1911 when they added football to their collection of sports that they offered. They have been regular features in the Bundesliga since its creation in 1963, and Heinz Höher was able to keep the club there for each of his 7 seasons in charge between 1972 and 1979, although they would only finish in the top half once during that time, that being in Höher's last season there in 1979. The closest they came to falling back into the wilderness of the second tier was in 1977, when they finished just 1 place and 1 point above the relegation zone, but their 8th place finish achieved in 1979 under Höher is their joint 3rd highest league finish since 1963. Joint 10th, Borussia Dortmund with Jürgen Klopp. Charisma, ebullience and joviality personified, Jürgen Klopp is the last manager to win the Bundesliga for a club outside of Bayern Munich, with his Dortmund side setting a then Bundesliga points record tally of 81 to win the Meisterschale in 2011-2012. That was Klopp's 4th season in charge at the Westfalenstadion, and his 2nd title in succession after he defied the odds with this extremely youthful team, which contained the likes of Mario Götze, Shinji Kagawa, Mats Hummels and Robert Lewandowski, to win the Bundesliga in 2010-11. He would then reach a Champions League final in 2013, losing to Bayern Munich, but in 2014-15, with Borussia marooned at the foot of the table by February, he announced that he would leave at the end of the season, bringing the curtain down on one of the most successful spells in the club's history. 9th, Bayer Leverkusen with Theo Kirchberg. One of the unluckiest clubs worldwide, Bayer Leverkusen have finished runners-up in the Bundesliga on 5 separate occasions, with only 1 DFB Pokal and a UEFA Cup to show for their extraordinary consistency over the previous 4 decades. However, they didn't participate in the Bundesliga once during Theo Kirchberg's 7-year spell in charge, spending each of those years in the Regionalliga, which at the time was the 2nd tier of German football, and although they won it once, they finished 2nd in their promotion group behind Kickers Offenbach by 2 points and thus were consigned to the 2nd tier for yet another season. 8th, FC Union Berlin with Uwe Neuhaus. A club on the rise at the moment, Union Berlin, in only their 2nd ever Bundesliga campaign, finished in 7th and qualified for the upcoming Europa Conference League, giving them their first European adventure since 2001-2002. However, by 2007, when Uwe Neuhaus became the club's new manager, they were in the 3rd tier of German football, but in 2008-09, they won the inaugural Dritte Liga title to win promotion back to the Zweite Bundesliga, where they stayed for each of the next 5 seasons under Neuhaus's stewardship. Neuhaus most recently managed Arminia Bielefeld, but was sacked midway through last season, with the club mired in relegation trouble, which they eventually managed to avoid under the guidance of Frank Kramer. 7th, FC Mainz 05 with Jürgen Klopp. He's back again. Yep, Jürgen Klopp makes his second appearance in this video, this time for the club with whom he spent 11 years as a player and then 7.5 as a manager. Mainz had never played in the Bundesliga prior to his appointment, but Klopp was the man to guide them there for the first time when he achieved promotion back in 2004, but within 3 years they would be relegated back down a division. Klopp decided to stick around to see if he could manage them back up to the Bundesliga at the first time of asking, but after being unable to do so, he resigned in 2008, going on to join Borussia Dortmund that summer, and the rest, as they say, is history. 6th, Arminia Bielefeld with František Zubek. František Zubek is the only man in this entire video whose stint in control of a particular club completely predates not only the Bundesliga and the split of Germany into East and West, but also World War II, as he joined at the very start of 1926 and wouldn't leave until the summer of 1933, the year that the Nazis took full control over the country. It was actually Zubek's third spell in charge of Armenia, whose name pays homage to the fighter Arminius, who was described by Tacitus as the liberator of Germany after he successfully helped fight off 3 separate Roman factions. That is quite impressive, you gotta admit. Bielefeld sadly haven't done the name of Arminius any favours whatsoever, as they've gone without a major piece of silverware throughout their history, with Zubek only able to win a few minor honours during his 9 cumulative years with the club. 5th, Hertha Berlin with Helmut Konsbein. Helmut Konsbein joined the club in crisis in 1966, as Berlin had been forcibly relegated from the Bundesliga the previous season owing to various allegations of bribery, and they wouldn't return until 1969. They would then be caught up in yet another match-fixing scandal in 1971 alongside a few other clubs, at which point it was revealed that Hertha was severely in debt, which they were only able to resolve when they sold their own stadium. Konsbein somehow survived through all the chaos and even achieved 2 third-place finishes during his tenure, but he left to join Hanover in March 1974, which probably was a pretty wise decision all things considered. Then began a true managerial merry-go-round, as assistant manager Hans Eder was appointed as interim coach until the end of the season, with Dietmar Kramer set to take over in the summer of 1974, but after just 8 days in charge, Kramer was let go and Eder officially took over the club once again. But a week later, George Kessler was hired as the new manager and Eder reverted back to being assistant. Truly a turbulent time indeed. 4th, VfL Wolfsburg with Imre Farkasinski. Hungarian Imre Farkasinski was another manager in this video who took over a club in a league outside of the Bundesliga, but wasn't able to guide them up into it once during his time there, despite, in his particular case, spending 9 years with Wolfsburg. He actually only took part in the Bundesliga promotion playoffs once, back in 1970, although of course he wasn't successful, and by 1974 the club had sunk drastically and were in a relegation scrap. Farkasinski was dismissed by the club midway through 1974-75, and Wolfsburg would ultimately go on to lose that particular relegation fight as they fell into the 3rd tier, where they remained for every season up until 1992, barring one, but it's safe to say they've left those dire days well and truly behind them. 3rd, Borussia Mönchengladbach with Hennes Weisweiler. Borussia Mönchengladbach had only won 1 major trophy by the time Hennes Weisweiler took charge of the club in 1964, but by the time he'd left, they'd won a further 5, which included 3 league titles and the UEFA Cup in 1975. Powered by an extremely young squad boasting superstars like Gunter Netzer, Jupp Heynckes and Berti Vogts, they won promotion to the Bundesliga in 1965 and, alongside Bayern Munich, who were promoted with Gladbach that very season, were the hegemonic force in German football throughout the 1970s. Weisweiler's attacking style received many plaudits across Germany and helped them become the neutrals team, but after the decade was out, Gladbach lost considerable income and couldn't keep up with the juggernaut of Bayern in the years that followed, only having won 1 trophy since 1980. 2nd, VfB Stuttgart with Georg Furtzer. Georg Furtzer came to Stuttgart in 1947 with a clear vision to put a greater focus on young footballers from in and around the region, and it was a notion that would reap a multitude of benefits. Within 3 years, his Chargers had won the German Championship, a feat which they would repeat in 1952, as well as reaching the final of the Championship again in 1953, albeit losing on this occasion to Kaiserslautern. He would also win 2 DFB Pokals during his 13 years with the club, leaving in 1960 as a club legend, although they wouldn't win another major trophy until 1984, and they've only lifted 4 more overall in the 61 years since he left. 1st, SC Freiburg with Volker Finke. The longest serving manager in German football history is Volker Finke, who stayed at Freiburg for 16 years during a real rollercoaster of an era for the Black Forest club. Finke was the man in charge for their debut campaign in the Bundesliga in 1993-94, and 2 years later, powered by an attacking style of play that earned them the nickname of the Breisgau Brasilianer, they came in third and qualified for the UEFA Cup. In 1997 though, they were relegated, one of 3 relegations that they would suffer under Finke's management, and after failing to return to the Bundesliga for 2 seasons after their demotion in 2005, Finke took the decision to resign from the club after 16 years of incredible service to them. Christian Streich, the incumbent manager of Freiburg, is approaching a decade in charge of them, making him the current longest serving manager amongst all of Europe's top 5 leagues, which gives him a decent chance of overtaking Finke's record across all of Germany, but at the moment it is still Finke, who managed Cameroon at the 2014 World Cup, who reigns supreme. So that's the rankings for each of the Bundesliga clubs' longest serving managers done and dusted with, but on screen now, you should be seeing the combined table when all of those leagues are put together. As I say, I won't do any commentary over them, I'll just let the pictures show themselves out. And that just about wraps up today's video, looking at every single Bundesliga club and their longest serving manager ranked from lowest to highest. If you enjoyed it, hit the like and hit the subscribe button if you have not done so already. You can ring the notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a video straight away. And if you want me to expand the series out into other areas, I have a couple of ideas in mind, but if you want me to look at other things, maybe do other leagues or just other players or managers in general, then please do let me know and I'll do my best to make them happen. Thank you very much for watching this video though, and until next time, I will see you then.